Ngā mihi tuatahi ki ngā tupuna, tēnā koutou. I ngā mate, haere, haere, haere atu rā. Te mihi tuarua ki te mana whenua o tēnei rohi, ki te whānau o te ahiwaru, ngā mihi, ngā mihi, ngā mihi. Te mihi tuatoru ki te whenua Uenuku, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. It is beautiful to be here with my dear friend, Dr. Elizabeth Kerekere, the amazingness. And I have the pleasure of clicking the clicker. Nice, awesome. I have the pleasure of presenting some highlights from Identify in 15 minutes. And so I said at one point that we'll take partai, but we won't. So sorry, that was a bit of a joke. But I would very much like to ask, I haven't told people this, but there are a lot of people in the whānau who have supported this mahi. So if your name is on the slide, could you please stand up? And just so people get a sense of the kind of broad community engagement that has been involved in this profu here. Jack, come on up here. Next, and Kāhui there too. Kia ora. So just quickly, what, why and how for Identify. We know that to get the change that we need good data. And data is critical for advocacy. And for me, my intersection comes from decades of doing queer activism, as well as working a lot around supporting the wellbeing for young people. And so one of the challenges that we found is that I've been involved heavily with the Youth 2000 survey series, which is amazing, but it is a general survey of young people, and that means it's limited in its ability to cater to the experiences of Takatapu and rainbow communities. Equally, we have some amazing broad community surveys of particular groups from our Takatapu and rainbow communities, but they don't often centre on young people's experiences. And so this is where Identify comes in. It's that intersection around young people aged 14 to 26 who are Takatapu or rainbow. The way that we wanted to make this survey relevant was to do large-scale community consultation and engagement, which involved hui around the country, co-leadership with Inside Out and Rainbow Youth, and that culminated in an online survey that ran after the COVID lockdown, so in February to August 2021. Thanks to Elizabeth, who hosted us, we launched our community advocacy report at Parliament last year, and we had a symposium, and that report details a lot of issues that we are probably not particularly surprised by, but it does give us some useful numbers to bounce off of. And when I initially did this presentation with Elizabeth, we kind of constructed one and then we threw it out because it was just so deficit focused. And so today, we're not doing that presentation. We're instead doing another presentation, which is a strengths-based kind of one to kind of acknowledge the heed, to kind of recognize that our communities have been through a lot. And so this is focusing on some of the good stuff. That means that I encourage you to look at the community advocacy report when you're feeling steeled for some of the more negative stories. In total, we had 4,784 rainbow Takatapu young people who participated in the survey. And part of the reason for doing this survey and getting a large number was to ensure that we had sufficient sizes of different groups so that we could do sub-analyses to recognize the intersectional depth that exists within our communities. We also surveyed allies, but we haven't included that data here as well. In terms of an age distribution, all you need to know is that there are young people from 14 to 26 included at a decent size, and we've got lots of young people in that sort of secondary school age who are there, but also young people right up into that older youth spectrum. We had 120 unique ethnicities included in the survey, and Elizabeth said it would be nice if we could try and do a little bit of a word cloud to show you some of the diversity that exists within that. We've used the stats classifications for identification, And that just gives you a sense of the huge amount of ethnic diversity that exists within Takatapu and Rainbow communities who are young in Aotearoa. And in terms of some of the particular groups, these are total numbers of participants. We have 189 Pacific peoples, 89 groups of young people who are part of the Mila categorization, 750 Māori young people included, 4,000 young people who are European or Pākehā, and then 570 who were identified as Asian. What this means is that our data is skewed towards the white experience, so it will be undercounting the negativity of racism. So we're presenting a probably more positive experience when we talk about general data compared to looking at the more specific stuff. But the big takeaway is there's great ethnic variation in the survey. It's not just a limited sample. In terms of gender groups, about half of the sample was trans or said they were unsure of their gender identity, and that translated into a widespread of trans identities, including nearly 44% of young people who identified as non-binary. There were also 45 participants included who identified as being intersex. And in terms of the advocacy report, we go over a whole bunch of stuff. Schools, post-secondary, family whānau, everything's there. And I encourage you to look at it and then reach out to me if you have requests for any specific kind of data that you'd like to do. I'm always really keen to make sure that we make this relevant. And a big shout out to the HRC who have really taken the work we did around conversion practices and really flown with that. And that was a really awesome collab.
Can I just add in here the importance of when we do our community research? John was one of the thousands of people that did a submission to the Health Select Committee, or to the committee that listened to the conversion practices submissions, and then they got him to come back and do a special report to the committee to give some more detailed information. That's the power of our data, that out of a sea of thousands of people, they went, oh, we need to know more about this. And so just mahi to that work and your job you did there.
Thanks, Ehua. Well, very kindly stewarded by you in that process, and thanks to Alex for being my offsider on that call. That was kind of freaky with Simon Bridges on the other end. And so anyway, today, happy findings, new findings. We're focusing on young people's commitment to positive actions, and really centering the fact, and there are so many young people here today, and recognizing young people as critical agents of change to achieve the change that we want to see. And also, Elizabeth is going to be presenting on some specific Takatapu and Māori data. And then we won't have time for whakaaro and pātai as a group, but please come up and ask us questions afterwards. So in terms of some of the positive stuff in the survey, we asked young people a bunch of questions, including standing up for what I believe in, even when it's unpopular to do so. And you'll see that 9 out of 10 young people who are Takatapu and Rainbow agreed that that was very important or important to them to do. So these young people are incredibly able and apt to stand up for what they believe in. Helping to make the world a better place in which to live was very important, again, to 9 out of 10 of these young people. And we also found that helping to make sure that all people are treated fairly, which is particularly relevant to the kaupapa here, and have equal opportunities, was even more important to these young people. Approaching 100% of these young people really talking to the service that young Takatapu and Rainbow communities have. And that leads us to kind of conclude the future is bright. These young people make for a very bright future. And then the call to action is to think about how can we ensure that these young people can safely contribute to creating equality. What is it that we can do in our mahi to enable that to happen?
Proud to be Māori. I'm pretty happy about this. Huge majority of our young people said that that's important to them, because the core of being Takatapu, of course, is we're Māori first. Māori values are important to me. I love this. Generosity, kindness, being a good host, manaakitanga, tika, pono, and aroha. And I think this is a testament to the fact that those values are important, despite the fact that a lot of these young people don't speak Māori. and may not be connected to their marae, and sometimes not even to their whānau, but the values speak to them. This is mana, right here, that people should respect and value our status. This is exactly what Whare Takatāpui is about, is giving the opportunity for our young people to stand up and be counted, to exist and be who they are. Nearly 90% of our young people. And I'm accepted on my marae. It feels like a drop. I know when I saw this, I was like, oh, 55. Actually, it's a majority of our young people. There's been very few surveys that have captured the Māori voice, and we go back to Lavender Islands, which was done in 2004, and we pulled out, not me, I can take no credit for the work that was done, pulled out that data, and the figures were way less than that. We know that this is changing, we know that this is improving as more of our whānau become familiar with Takatāpui Māori, queer young people, and then what that means inside our culture, what that means inside our schools, on our kapahaka lines. And this is the change that we're continuing to see. This is beautiful. Again, it's a number that we commit to continue to grow. And that's through the work that's being done on the ground through our communities and our schools, and working more into our allies, people that provide health services to our young people, people who engage with them in lots of different ways. So I'm pretty excited about this, that people, more than half of our young people, that certainly was not the story when I was growing up. It was not the story 20 years ago. So this is a powerful amount of data. I hope, I haven't talked about it. Is it going to be longitudinal, or we're going to do this again in a couple of years? Yes. So we can track.
Funders.
We can track. We'll be able to track. This is really, really critical data about where our people are doing, because we might have these Māori poor negative statistics on one side, or the poor statistics we know lots of our young people face. However, here's the pride. Here's the mana. Here's the mauri shining through. My Takatāpui rainbow identity is respected by my non-Māori rainbow groups and communities. And this is also important. I mean, the whakapapa of Te Whanawhana is we came into a space where it was very hard to be Māori inside queer spaces. And that world is changing as well. Many of our organisations have taken journeys around being more, showing better their commitment to Te Tiriti o Waitangi. What does it mean for Te Ao Māori? Better representation, and actually kind of exploring what that means, but challenging themselves to make our spaces generally more accepting. So again, it's more than half. I'm really, really stoked. Because right there, our rangatahi are committed and proud. And the question we can ask ourselves is, how do we ensure that those taihui, those rangatahi takatāpui, are well supported and can safely contribute into the mahi that you do?
So, and before we conclude with the summary, just building off the panel that we had before lunch, we also crunched some numbers and found that, a little bit of deficit here, but relevant, that 4 out of 10 young people, 39% of the secondary school students, had experienced at least one form of discrimination on the basis of their takatāpui or rainbow identity in the past year. And that translates to 764 young people. So that sounds like a good number for a class action, I reckon. There, so just supporting Tabby on that mahi for and our friends here at the ministry to recognise that there's still a lot of work to be done. But in summary, we do want to emphasise the future is very bright. The young people who participated show, and their participation really did show that they wanted to make sure that their voices were counted, and that Takatāpui Māori are proud of their identity. They hold to their Māori values, and they want to see change. And so the pātai for us really is to think about how can we work well to ensure that all of those young people can contribute, and that we recognise their intersectional opportunities and find ways for them to feel safe and supported in the mahi that we're doing.
Kia ora. 15 minutes and 25 seconds.